thank you so much for talking with us today. And congratulations on season 2. Are you guys so excited about that? I'm excited as a fan, but are you guys excited as well?
Yeah, very excited too. Of course, yeah.
I'm so happy to hear the news yesterday, especially after having gotten to see most of the first season, and I'm already excited to see where things go. And as we've talked about a little bit, obviously, I am a fan. These are very much beloved books. Anne Rice's work in general, especially Interview with the Vampire, is so loved, and Louis and Lestat are beloved fictional characters. What attracted the two of you to these much-loved, iconic characters?
I don't know if, I had read the books when I was a kid, and I was 13, or from, around that age. Didn't read all of them. But, when I had read that they were going to make it into a series, I really hoped that I would, have the opportunity to be able to, put myself in the ring for it and audition for it. And then, having read Roland's script, it was just such a good adaptation, and it had managed to keep all of the essence of those books within that first season, especially. So yeah, I don't know if it was attraction or just feel incredibly fortunate to have the opportunity to get to do it. I fought my way in.
Jacob, what about you?
I came to the books through the show. I read Rollins' pilot before I read Interview with the Vampire. But I think I was just really struck by, as a chronic overthinker who has bouts of depression and anxiety, Louis, enter Louis. I think I felt really understood by him, and was excited by the prospect of being able to explore those things in such beautiful detail. There's something that Anne Rice does with these vampires that is just, it's about that immortal search for meaning and for what your purpose is on this life and endurance. They're themes that are swimming in my head all the time.
Well, and you're absolutely right. And one of the things I love, and first of all, your Louis is fantastic. You bring a level to. I often talk to some of my friends who, like you, Sam, I came to them as a teenager, made some lifelong friends because of the books. And we always talk about how Louis is both relatable and insufferable at the same time. And the show makes some changes to the books, particularly to Louis, that I think are brilliant, because it gives us this new approach to him. And there's more to the character, I feel like, with these changes. For you, as a new fan of Rice's work, how do you feel about the shifts in Louis's character, and what do you feel it adds to this timeless story?
It's interesting because I read the first 2 books before we started shooting, and once we wrapped, and I read Queen of the Damned, I read Tale of the Body Thief, and as we've gone on, and Sam and I talk regularly about it, it's really strange how the Louis in the books is sort of it's very. Well, it's not strange because Rollins read everything.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like our Louis kind of is what Louis becomes in the books. He's maybe a little bit more absent from the stories until Prince. I'm not on Prince Lestat.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that the similarities are actually more present than the differences. I think a lot of the changes are circumstantial rather than, or what's the word? Not circumstantial. It's like his business.
Contextual, maybe.
Contextual, yeah. But yeah, I think he's the same guy. He just maybe has a little bit more, not to take anything away from the Louis of the book, but I think he just has a little bit more backbone in our story. I think he's a little bit more active, perhaps.
He definitely.
And he's responding to the vampire Lestat, or he's not responding in our show to the Lestat of the first book.
Yeah.
That is true, and one of the things that blew me away about this show, and Sam, you brought the Brat Prince to life in a way that I never thought as a Anne Rice fan I would get to see. So my metaphorical hat is off to you. What was your approach to this character? And also, you're absolutely correct, Jacob. Your Louis does give a little bit back to that Lestat. But Sam, how did you approach this character? Because he is, again, you have the whole breadth of the story to work with. This is such a well-rounded version of Lestat. How did you approach it?
Well, I have to give absolute credit to Roland, because he had managed to translate the characters so beautifully and brought in quite early on, like, elements where you start to understand him and you understand his actions, and as fans of the book will know, like, within the first episode, he's referencing Nikki, he's referencing his mother, he's referencing fighting the wolves, so you start to, see where he's come from, and so it's easier to understand some of the choices that he makes. But a big thing of it for me was every time I was sort of confused about how I approach a scene, I would just go back to the books, and look for similar scenes, or look for references or something that you can draw on. It was. I guess I've been reading for a long time as well, so I put a lot of pressure on myself to be able to fulfill my idea of what he was like, which can be a bit stressful at times, because you really want to do him justice. But yeah,
it had to have been so much fun to do, though.
The most fun. It really is the most fun thing to do. I can't tell you. It's so much fun, because he's so complicated a character. And it's like a gift. The dialogue that we get to say is extraordinary, and it's so gratifying playing this character and in this world, saying direct Anne Rice lines. It's like incredible, because when you read it, it's very different to how it sounds in your mouth. So it sounds in your head, to when you have to put it in the words in your mouth, and you actually go, holy shit, these people speak like this. they, because there's a lot of exclamation points, and there's a lot of love, there's a lot of the very extreme emotions in the book, that when you translate it, they remain extreme, but you also have to put them in a sense of reality as well, which is a bit of a minefield to navigate. So it's really, really fun. And the fangs are fun, and the contact lenses are fun, and everything is great.
One of the things that I know that a lot of fans are very excited about is Anne Rice's novels are so queer. There's so much queer subtext and undertones, but the books never really put it out there. At long last, we finally get to see this delivered on in the series in a way that is beautiful, complex, not exploitative. This is genuine, but it's within the context of this very complicated, very human relationship among vampires. How important was it for the two of you to get this aspect of the story not only correct, but to tell the full breadth and aspect of this very unique relationship?
You kind of can't talk about it without, for one, I think we have to acknowledge that the books are very queer. I think that Interview with the Vampire, Louis is not talking about it.
Yeah.
Like, he's sort of, at least in terms of Lestat.
Until you get to the second half of the book, I think. And then, I think by the second half of the book that Louis sort of does start to acknowledge that it was something more, which I think is such a cool, and I was reading Anne Rice last night, and she, get to sort of a typical Anne Rice chapter where she's gone and retells the whole, chronicles again in one chapter, from a different character's point of view, or she'll just start talking about the books themselves, because obviously they exist as real things in her universe, which gives you the ability to go, well, this character was seeing it this way at that time. So she can always reevaluate and change her mind on how things were perceived. So yeah, I think the relationship, the way that Louis describes it at the beginning, is sort of like, is it subtext, or has he acknowledged it, or is he just angry with the way it worked out? But I really feel like as we go on, it's the text is the text. I mean, it's very clear that they're in love, and it's very, you know, if they're in a romantic relationship, and I don't think we would be doing the Anne Rice universe or doing the Vampire Chronicles if that wasn't the case. I think it would be something else, and it would be a waste of time for us too, because the fun stuff comes from the complexities of the relationship and the dynamics and all the detail and nuance that they have. If we're doing a will they, won't they, or like sort of like subtle glances across the room, then you sort of spend all the time on that sort of tension rather than the really complicated toxic dynamic that exists between the two of them.
Yeah. And then also playing that off against that, like that tension and that, like that kind of, the aftermath of some of those fights, it suddenly rebuilds this like sexual and emotional tension. Like, but yeah, like you said, you get to explore the breadth of a relationship. Yeah, they're each other's endgame, aren't they? In the book, like in the books, they always come home to each other.
Yeah,
and there's this kind of, I think it's telling that seems to be sort of the denouement, or like the end of a lot of the novels is Louis and Lestat like being petty and in love, you know?
Louis and Lestat being petty and in love is absolutely the perfect way to sum all of that up.
Yeah.
I love it. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. And on a personal note, as a fan, thank you so much for bringing this story to life in a completely new way.